Diaries of a Madman. Written by What Must I Do? Chapter 9. Hunter or Hunted? One night after Twilight and Spike went off to bed, I got another visit from the Princess of the Night. "How can I help you, Luna?" I asked, trying to stop her from looking into the library behind me.
"Allowing me out of the cold for a few moments would be nice,"
she said. Fuck. I stood aside and let her enter.
"My thanks. It is quite... What were you doing in here?"
she asked, looking at the crossbow I had broken down and bolts I was readying. "You kinda caught me at a bad time," I said, shutting the door and walking past her. "I was about to go hunting. It can wait until tomorrow, though."
"Hunting? In the Everfree, I presume?"
she asked, walking up to the crossbow parts and examining them. "Yep. I would go to Whitetail Woods and hunt, but apparently the deer there are sapient, and I don't eat things that can talk. The Everfree has plenty of its own dangers, but I'm very careful, and don't usually go in far enough to find anything overly large."
"I see. And why go at night, in the cold?"
"The cold is a tradition thing. The hunting season back where I come from is in winter, and there's usually a lot of movement at night, I've found. It's a lot harder to see, though, which is a big problem. But once I make my kill, I just fly out as quickly as I can."
"Very well, then. I shall go with you."
"What? It's not safe for a princess there."
"I know you speak out of ignorance, so I will take no offense, but there was a saying long ago. The sun is the shield of Equestria. The moon is the sword. It will interest me to see how you hunt."
"And you won't be disturbed by the sight of me skinning anything?"
"I most definitely will not. It is more likely I will be able to teach you something, I believe."
For some reason, I find that hard to believe. "All right," I sighed, shrugging. "Let me just put this together, get changed, and then we can go." It didn't take me long to fit all the parts of the crossbow back together. It was somewhat shabbily made, and I very much wanted to get a better one, but not having much in the way of money put a damper on that. I need to start doing odd jobs or something. These hands have got to be worth some kind of money. Luna watched very intently as I put the crossbow together.
"I have never seen such a weapon,"
she admitted when it was in one piece. "That's not too surprising," I said. "It takes fingers to use, after all. I'll be back down in a second." She seemed content to study the crossbow more as I went to go put on some colder weather clothes. I had that set specifically designed to be used for night hunting. It was basically just dark camouflage. I got dressed quickly, so soon enough I was back down to the front room of the library. Luna had moved her observation to my bolts.
"Are these forms of... spears?"
she asked. "Sort of." I picked up the crossbow and put 10 of the broadhead bolts in a quiver I made just for the hunting. The bolts went around my waist and the crossbow went around my shoulder. "You ready?"
"I have no need for weapons, so yes."
"Show off." "Then let's go," I said, walking to the door. We let ourselves out and made sure the door was closed behind us, then started walking to the forest. "So how much do you know about the Everfree?"
"Little, other than it has a special resonance with me. It started as a dark grove atop a bastion of evil. When I went to cleanse it, I failed. It has since grown, though it seems that its expansion has stopped. It needs to be mapped, but many are wary of it, and Celestia refuses to allow me to send any pony within."
"That might be for the best. That place is hellish."
"Yes, but it could possibly still be cleansed. The forest is... alive, in a way. It feels dangerous and sends its monsters to seek them out. The more dangerous you make yourself, the more dangerous the forest will become. And the further you go to the heart, the more and more frenzied its attempts will be to cast you out. Going in as a simple hunter along the fringes is safe, but going in deeper armed to the teeth would be a fatal mistake."
"Then let's not make that mistake," I said, my feathers ruffling.
Very well, Nav. So what do you hunt tonight?
Whatever I can find that's small enough to carry out, but enough to provide for more than one meal. With as much variety as there is in that place, shouldn't be hard to find something fairly quickly.
Are there any beasts of which I will need to be wary?
She asked.
There is a little that can harm me, I believe, but such overconfidence has cost many a battle.
You see any chicken heads, look away immediately, I said. Same for buffalo heads. You meet the eye of a cockatrice or a catoblepas, have fun getting turned to stone. And be wary of even the flowers. There are patches of blue ones in there called poison joke that'll fuck you up just by touching them. Same for any inconspicuous animals. I've seen a regular rabbit in there make something twice its size run away in terror once. Shame I didn't have a holy hand grenade with me.
I shall be cautious. You know that I could have griffins supply you with meat, right?
Shit, really? I asked. How much would that cost me?
Continued friendship, of course,
She said.
It wouldn't be too expensive for them to make a side detour to Ponyville. They already supply a restaurant in Canterlot after all.
That would certainly be nice. That said, and try not to take this the wrong way, but killing things is fun. Gives me an adrenaline rush like nothing else. Most humans feel the same way, even if they don't like to admit it. There's just something about taking a life that feels so empowering. I could easily live without it, and if the forest gets too dangerous, I will. But why go without that rush if I don't have to? She slowly nodded, pretending like she understood.
I used to be friends with many dragons that spoke the same way of killing,
She quietly said, looking forward.
They spoke of battle and the rush from finding and besting a foe. I confess, even I have felt a similar rush at many times, but I fear I lack the instinctive joy given to those lucky souls born as predators instead of herbivores.
That is probably the creepiest thing she might have ever said to me. There are times when you scare me,
Fear not the night, Nav,
she said.
for the night is your friend, and friends have little to fear from friends.
I let that kill the conversation because I really didn't like where it was going. And besides, we were at the forest. I stopped right before entering and unslung the crossbow to cock it. When we get in there, if you hear anything, quietly let me know, I said. With those big ears, you could probably pick up more stuff than I can.
All right.
She answered.
Same for smell?
Sure, I guess. How quiet can you be?
Not very. However, magic has a solution.
Her horn lit up and a spell slowly settled over her, an aura sinking slowly down to her hooves. When it hit the ground, it dissipated and she nodded, and then waved a hoof to the forest. I fitted a bolt in the crossbow and began walking in, keeping the weapon raised and ready. As soon as I got past the first row of trees, I felt the darkness intensify around me. The forest itself seemed to suck some of the life from me, but I was used to it at this point. I continued on, Luna silently ghosting behind me. While I couldn't be nearly as quiet as her cheating ass could, I made sure not to unsettle too many of the fallen leaves as they walked, peering through the dead underbrush of the forest. The only times I could see very well were with the shafts of moonlight that swept through the little remaining foliage of the upper layer, casting the area on a pale glow. For a while, the forest itself was silent, and only the sounds I could hear were the footsteps I was making and my own steady breathing, each breath of which sent out a thin plume of fog. Slowly, as the bugs and lesser creatures of the forest became used to my presence once again, more noises began joining me. There weren't too many things out since it was winter, but a gentle cacophony of bugs and some manner of the night birds soon picked up. The forest part of Everfree Forest was somewhat of a misnomer. The actual place was a strange mix of jungle, swamp, and forest, with animals of all types present, plants of all types as well. I dread entering the place come summer due to horribly humid weather within. We were walking within the place for about 10 minutes when I felt something pull on my shoulder. I came to a stop looking around. Luna used a hoof to stop me and point to the left. I slowly turned that way, aiming the crossbow before me. My breath caught when I saw the animal that was passing near us. It appeared to be a mix between a saber-toothed lion, a dragon, a scorpion, and a unicorn. cat-like head with large tusks, a single horn, a scorpion stinger, and scales covering the entire thing. Dingo neck. I knelt down quietly, watching it walk past and trying to make myself as small and silent a target as possible. Don't notice me, for the love of God, just keep walking. I very seriously doubted my crossbow could even pierce that thing's scales, and I didn't want to fucking find out. Even if it could hurt it, there's no way I'd want to try to eat that thing or dragging it out. Hell, what was something so dangerous doing so close to the edge? Thankfully, it soon moved out of sight. I waited another 3 minutes before standing again and continuing on my way. Luna followed with nary a sound, her hoofball swallowed in the void of the spell she cast. About 15 minutes later, I got lucky and spotted something a little to the right. I held up a fist, hopefully letting Luna know to stop, and knelt down, aiming the crossbow at the two bird-like creatures in front of me. Chickcharnies, they were. Those things are basically long-limbed owls with legs and really weird arms. The bestiary Twilight gave me about the animals in the forest had a number of legends associated with those things, but none of them were very important. Unfortunately, I didn't have a very good shot from where I was. There were too many dead shrubs and shit in the way, so I started slowly and quietly circling, trying to find a better spot from which to fire. The two birds appeared to be foraging on the ground floor, which probably meant they found a rat or something and were either tearing it apart or waiting for it to emerge from its cover. From the small actions they were making, I knew they were being watched, and both seemed tense to fly away at any signs that I was actually getting closer. The animals in the forest aren't used to things that have ranged weapons, thankfully, so they didn't know that it could be within their best interest to flee immediately instead of waiting. I taught one of them that lesson seconds later, sending him flying away in terror when I killed his friend from 15 yards with a crossbow. Birds aren't exactly the most resilient of creatures, so it was easily a one-shot kill. I immediately reloaded the crossbow and continued waiting, kneeling. Luna moved from her position where I left her over to me and put a hoof on my shoulder, cocking her head in confusion. "Wait," I very, very quietly whispered. She blinked and looked around before joining me in kneeling, watching the scene before us. It took about 20 more minutes, but the other bird finally flew back from where it had been hiding, alighting a nearby branch and looking at its friend's body, presumably wondering if it'd be worth continuing to search for the rat they were originally looking for. "So, they're just like deer. Even with a dead one in the field, they'll come back. Interesting." I lifted the crossbow and shot him as well, forgetting until I pulled the trigger to correct my aim for the height difference. Since I was aiming center of the mass, a bolt completely obliterated its face, dropping to the ground floor and sending the bolt careening off into the forest. I just shrugged and stood, reloaded the crossbow again before walking to the clearing. Luna joined me. "Simple," I whispered, nodding at the two dead birds. "Won't taste the best since they're predators, but it's better than nothing."
Is that it then?
Luna asked, removing her spell.
You murder them from afar?
"Hey, I don't have any natural hunting mechanisms," I said, grabbing the one under the tree and dragging it to the center with the other. "No claws, no teeth. Humans hunt with their brains, not their bodies. To that end, we make tools. A crossbow is one such that enables easier killing. Can argue that it isn't sporting, but hunting isn't about the sport. Hunting is about getting food, and here I have two very fine examples of food. Now, let's get going before the smell of blood attracts something bigger than the two of us combined." I kept one hand around the crossbow's pistol grip, but the other around the legs of the two birds, lifting my wings.
"Let us leave this place then,"
Luna said, nodding. She took off first, and I let her get above the tree line before joining her in the air. Together, we flew back to Ponyville, but we didn't make it all the way since I wasn't about to go to town with two dead birds like that.
"Why are we stopping here?"
Luna asked when we got to a place I habitually cooked my meat. "Because Twilight doesn't like it when I skin things in her house," I said, setting the two birds down on a cleared patch of dirt next to the little stream. "There's plenty of dead wood in the little copse here, and the stream makes cleaning tools easy. I'll pluck and skin them, cook some of the meat now, and bring the rest back to cook later. Twilight doesn't much like it, but she hasn't yet complained enough yet to make me stop."
"I see. And would you mind a guest at your miniature feast?"
"Hey, if you want to eat meat, that's on you. But if you get sick, don't blame me. If you want to save me sometime, Go get me some dried wood so we can get a fire going. Her horn lit up and one of the rocks I set up in a circle lit on fire. The blaze spread to the others around it, creating a burning ring of fire. Alright, that works. It means you're gonna be waiting a while I pluck and skin these, though. Once again, her horn lit up, lifting the two birds off the ground. Her eyes narrowed and suddenly every feather off both of them was ripped out. My eyebrows lifted in surprise. You can cheat. I get it. Are you gonna rip their skin off too? Just take the rest of the honesty out of it?
Do you enjoy plucking and skinning your kills?
She asked, lifting one of her eyebrows. No. But if I'm gonna murder them in such a dishonest way, treating the bodies with respect is the least I can do to repay them. Disdainfully using magic in such a way ruins any chance to make up for it.
The dead are dead, Nav. They have no feelings, no cares left. Massaging your guilt over their immediate and unfair demise is one thing, but you should not pretend that you do such a thing for their benefit rather than your own. If it will make you feel better, take your time with this one,
she said, pushing the one that didn't have the destroyed face at me.
But I have few compunctions and less time to spend here, so if you don't mind...
Her horn lit up and a strange flash of light appeared around the feet of the bird. The light slowly moved to the creature's legs and then the body, disintegrating the outer skin as it moved. It finished by removing the entire head.
Simple.
I just shook my head, saying, I suppose to one that has no knowledge of spirituality or hunting, or at least the knowledge that I do, such a thing is acceptable, and explaining it would be pointless, I imagine. I tossed the other bird back to her. Do as you would. I'll stop pulling the meat off this one.
It pleases me that you saw reason,
she said with a smile. There was no answer I could make to that, so I just found the smooth, flat rock I used for cooking and set the bird on it. Then I took the knife and started slicing, removing the good meat and setting it in one pile, and removing the things that weren't fit to eat and tossing them into the fire. After clearing the skin off the other bird, she sat on my side, watching me work and occasionally asking questions. Since it was just a bird, it only took about 10 minutes or so to get all the meat worth eating off the thing. When I ate everything off of it, I tossed the body into the blaze and set the meat out in strips before moving the rock close to the stream. As bitterly cold as the stream was, I knew I needed to get all the blood off the meat and rock before I began cooking.
What are you doing?
Luna asked as the water ran over the meat, washing the red away. Cleaning it, I said. I'm not just about to pull meat out of something's body and cook it like this without cleaning it first. Unless I can hold it directly over the fire, that would be very risky health-wise.
Huh. That is not something I considered.
Always good to be careful. Soon the rock was ready to be moved to the fire. This isn't exactly the best way to cook since I don't have any spices or anything, I said.
I'm sure it will still be just fine,
she replied, smiling.
Just don't tell my sister that you let me have any of this. She would not approve.
Simple enough. Luna and I just watched the meat cook for a minute before I said, Hey, you want to try your hand at getting the meat out the other one? She blinked in surprise.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah, if you want. I mean, it's not like anything will happen if you mess it up. Birds are pretty easy, straightforward, not much meat to ruin or waste.
Yes, that makes me feel better,
she sarcastically answered. Glad I can help. There's another flat rock around here somewhere. Here's the knife. She gripped it with her magic and used her horn to light up the area much better so she could find the rock in question. She pulled it over and set it down next to us and set the bird on it.
Should I just start anywhere?
She asked. It doesn't matter, no. Just be careful with the eternal organs. You don't want to rupture them and risk shooting fluids everywhere.
That sounds interesting.
She commented, taking the knife and carving even slices of the bird out, while I used a stick to make sure the meat was cooking didn't stick to the rock. It's interesting, but terrible, I said. Especially if it's anything from the stomach. You definitely don't want to pierce that. It smells horrible.
I can imagine. How many times have you done this?
Not many. I only skinned a single deer back home, since hunting was just a rare hobby instead of something I could do all the time. I knew the theory, but the first time I did it here, I learned a lot. This is probably the 5th or 6th time I've gone hunting in the Everfree. I don't really go that often.
Understandable. How often would you go if you start getting meat from the griffins?
Or even less often. I can live without killing or the danger. It takes something away from the taste if you didn't kill what you're eating yourself, but I'm okay with that. I've got my kill. Got my hands dressed in blood. I know the feel of it now, which is something that everyone that eats meat should know.
Now that is a thought that I like. Shame that it doesn't apply to ponies. Though, I suppose I could make all the rich courtiers that surround my sister and I like flies come down to Ponyville and assist Farmer Applejack with their crops. They complain of the ever-changing prices of various items, while never considering the work put into preparing them. Even my sister is guilty of such inaction at times.
Hey, I didn't see you down there helping with the harvest.
My sister and I run the country, Navarone.
She shot back.
Those courtiers do little other than laze about in wine. Why my sister puts up with those fools is beyond me. In my time, our court was small, and filled only with those that had specific uses. Guards, soldiers, an agriculture advisor, a weather manager, a magic advisor, and a few others. Every complaint or query from a visiting pony was filtered through our advisors first. Now it seems that every pony with 2 bits to rub together can directly petition my sister with little more than a short screening period. She complains of all her time wasted, and yet...
She does it to herself?
Indeed. She tells me that times have changed and that I should change with them. But why, when such new methods are so grossly wasteful?
She asked, slicing the knife through bone in anger. Careful there, I calmly said, putting a hand on her shoulder. She pulled the knife away with a nod and began working correctly again. You and your sister have different courts, don't you? Day court and night court?
Yes.
Then find all the advisors you want and set your court up the old-fashioned way. See which works best, hers or yours. If you can get someone to give you an unbiased opinion of the differences between the 2 methods after some time, you can either stick to your guns if your way is better, or confidently do things the new way knowing precisely why it works better than instead of just taking Celestia's word for it.
That is... an idea,
she said, slowly nodding. I removed my hand from her shoulder and went back to poking at the meat.
I believe I shall do that,
she finally said.
Though it will take me some time to find some advisors willing to be nocturnal.
You found guards to do it. I'm sure it won't be a huge leap to find some civilians as well.
True. I will manage. And I believe I'm finished with this bird.
Then cast the remains in the flames. Looks like this stuff here is cooking as well.
Wonderful.
A horn lit up and the carcass floated to the fire.
Shall we dig in then?
If you want to burn your mouth, be my guest, I said, pulling the warm rock away from the fire. I'm going to wait a minute or two for it to cool off.
That is wise.
He sat next to me and waited.
It really is cold out here,
he said. Yep, that's the winter for you. She was silent for another few moments before sighing and saying,
Fine, I'll do it then.
After that, she wrapped her wing around me and pulled me close.
There.
If you're really that cold, we could have just moved closer to the fire, I said, throwing my arm around her shoulder.
This is more comfortable and requires less moving.
There was no real answer to that, since I could already feel her gentle warmth radiating through my side. It was presumably getting just as much, given that I was wearing one hell of a winter suit.
How long should we wait?
Now should be good enough, I said, stabbing one piece with my knife and bringing it to my mouth. Well, let me test it first. With her watching, I took a small bite, finding it an acceptable temperature. It's alright for me, I said, swallowing. Doesn't taste all that great, and it's kinda dry, but it's meat.
Good enough for me,
she said, lifting a piece up.
Oh, it's been too long since I've had any of this.
She sighed, shoving the whole chunk in her mouth. Alright, Luna is really starting to scare me. Scary or not, we ate the whole bird, down to the very last chunk. You want to cook up the other one? I asked. At that point, I was starting to feel quite tired, and didn't really feel like eating anymore. But apparently this wasn't something she could get away with eating back at the palace.
Not at this time,
she said.
Meat is interesting to eat, but not very healthy for us. And sadly, I believe it is about time I return to the palace. Would you like me to walk you home?
I don't know about you, but I don't feel like walking back. Want to just grab everything and fly?
That is acceptable. Need I carry anything?
Feel free to grab all of the leftover meat. I wasn't expecting to bag 2 kills tonight, so I didn't bring anything to carry the leftovers in. She nodded and stood, pulling away from my grasp and instantly making me feel twice as cold all over.
Then let us gather things quickly and leave. It is cold.
Sure is. I said as I stood and walked to where I left the crossbow. I pulled the hunting bolt out and put a practice one in, decocking it by shooting it into the soft dirt. After recovering the bolt, I walked over to where she had all the meat floating next to her.
Shall we?
Let's. We both took off, soaring toward Ponyville. It didn't take us long to arrive at the library. She entered with me so we could easily put the meat up. Soon enough, we were both in the main lobby again. That was actually pretty fun, I quietly said, shrugging off the thick greatcoat I had on. I didn't expect any of you ponies to be hunters or so blasé about blood.
I am not most ponies,
Luna said.
Should you go again, I might be interested in going with you.
Winter's almost over, so I probably won't go as often. But if I do decide to head in, I'll certainly let you know beforehand.
Excelsior!
I just barely stopped myself from cracking up when she said that.
But I'm afraid that I must be going. Duty calls, sadly.
I understand. Have fun, Luna.
Unlikely.
Her horn lit up and I thought she was about to teleport out. Instead, she pulled something against my back and forced me to her, where she hugged me.
But you aren't fettered by the same constraints, so you may definitely enjoy yourself.
Right. He answered, awkwardly patting her back. See you when I see you.
Whenever that may be.
She answered before teleporting away from her grasp on me, making me stumble for a second. Luna's fucking weird. I haven't decided yet if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Thank you to my wonderful Patreons that make making content like this more than possible. Thank you my tier 1s Balance Kindness, Chase Lemaster, Junus, Portal, Hyperlink, Jason, Nightingale, Macario, Pony Entertainment, Starlight Blaze, and Rain Flicker. My tier 2s Captain Blue Shadow, Chaotic Mist, The Animated Ghost, DJ Max 2000, Elemental Wolf, H1 Wolf King, HKK, aka Texture, Mackenzie McCullers, Nocturne, Papa Lennon, Redeemer of Dark, Solus Eclipse, Sword Brother Mordred, and Hardy Bryant. A big thank you to my previous Titan tiers, Dark Guardian, Danish Dash, and Maverick. And a large thank you to my current ones, User 1842 and Silent Titan. I appreciate you guys' support so much and it means a ton to me. That aside, however, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.